Hello duelists, this is Tombox here from MST.TV and welcome to my in-depth profile for Zodiac, part 1 of my two-part series. Now part 1 we will be covering Zodiacs in conjunction with Kaijus in the deck, and in part 2 we will be covering them with Eidolons or the Invoked. Now in this in-depth profile we are going to cover the deck core profile, we're going to cover the playstyle, we're going to demonstrate some combos, and also showcase some of the weaknesses of the deck. Now, as a quick summary, Zodiacs definitely is the most consistent XYZ deck, just as Necros was the most consistent ritual deck. And what makes them so consistent is that they have low card combo requirements. Like, you only need one card to actually set off a combo, mainly Molrat, and one card exceeds giving you full access to your extra deck. Now, note that they are the only archetype that can stack them one card into the extra deck to perform an Xyz summon. It is a proper Xyz summon, but this method can only be used once per turn. However, if you can meet the regular Xyz summoning condition, you can also perform an Xyz summon like that, in addition to the previous once per turn method. Now, because the deck is able to overlay on top of themselves constantly, they are literally piggybacking off of each other for more and more effects. Now, because they are so consistent, Zodiacs are actually more of an engine than a deck on their own. And the engine itself comes in multiple sizes depending on the other archetype that you're playing. If that archetype's really large and requires more card space, usually you can actually cut down on the Zodiac side, or vice versa. Now anyways, let's go into the deck profile. Now, before I get into the profile directly, just a heads up, Terratop, and Norden are both potential candidates for a ban list. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but more likely on Norden's side than Terratop. But, if the profile does change at the end of the deck profile part of it, I will give you other options to replace some of these cards in the deck. So let's move on. Okay, so here is my Kaiju Zodiac deck profile here. Now Zodiac, I'm running the fuller engine that includes the Thoroughblade, 10 keys, a bit more clunky, but it is okay, it's for consistency's sake. And here we go, and as you can see that the Kaiju stuff is very small over here. Starting with the Zodiac stuff on this side, first off we have Molrat, the most important card in the deck. Basically the center of the engine. When this card is normal summon, you can send one Zodiac card into the graveyard. Normally you're going to be sending this card here, which I'll get into in a bit, but if this is in your hand, you could probably send a Thoroughblade. Now, Molrat's effect is when it's attached as an Xyz material, it gives that Beast Warrior monster the ability to detach one Xyz material, it doesn't have to be Molrat, to summon out another Molrat from the deck. So basically all the Zodiacs in the deck are Beast Warriors, and since they can overlay on top of themselves, you kind of get the gist that if you hold on to the Molrat material, it can detach more and more throughout each Xyz summon, and then you'll start summon all your rats to perform another Xyz summon with the 2 rats that are summoned out. And based off of that, you can actually recycle these rats and keep on going, and that's actually crucial to the engine, to recycle these rats as much as you can. Next most important Zodiac monster would be the Viper. Viper during either player's turn can target one Beast Warrior monster and then attach it to that monster. And that's really useful because, well, it gives you, first of all, an additional material, but Viper's offering effect, so you will, as an Xyz material, is that Beast Warrior monster, after damage calculation, it banishes whatever that it battled. So that's your monster removal utility. And Viper is also your main damage, because if Viper is on the field and you swing with it during the battle phase, you do the 1200 and then you activate the effect and attach it to another, say another Zodiac Xyz, it gives off the 1200 attack, so essentially it can push for 24 by itself. Next up, Thoroughblade. When it's normal or special, you can discard any of the Zodiac cards and then draw one card. And I guess it's kind of useful depending on your hand, but if it's paired with an instant fusion, you can kind of combo. If you ditch a rat, you can go pretty far. You can go a little bit further, and when it's an Xyz material, you get piercing. So just walling up is no longer an option. Also part of the engine, we have the Speedroar Terratop and Taketomborg. Basically a free rank 3. Very useful, I would say. Your main 3 Xyz monster would be Totem Bird. We have MX Saber Invoker to summon out any of these dudes. And last but not least, we have Breaksword to, just in case your opponent has a back row that is kind of sticky, and you can special summon these cards without burning your normal summon, and then pop the card, say as a Solemn Warning or a Strike. That is quite crucial because Breaksword kind of acts as a ABC Diamond Direwolf, if you will. We have a pair of Maxi because it's a special summoning heavy format. Triple Triangle. Triple Triangle is very elemental triangle of the Zodiac Beast. You can target a face-up card you control and then destroy it, which is why Flying Sea isn't too good against this deck. Because if they give you a Flying Sea and you're holding onto this, well, let's just say you're going to pop that Flying Sea and basically just keep on comboing off. Now, you go into this card mainly because you can pop itself somehow with the Marmorat, and that's basically how you use it anyway. You can use it to pop other stuff as well, like a Tenki. Say you use Tenki, search off one of your Vipers, and then you play Elemental Triangle to pop the Tenki, all good. Tenki, of course, searches any of your Beast Warrior, and of course the entire Zodiac archetype are Beast Warrior, so we're good there. A pair of Chalice. Chalice is a very useful card, especially against stuff like Artifact, Scythe. Of course, there's also Vanity's Fiend, all that stuff. If you need to chain a negation, this is the one that you go to. And it can also turn off the opponent's Drancia. Next up we have Raigeki, and the reason being why we need this is mass board removal is necessary because it's actually going to be useful because none of these monsters actually float. I have a pair of Twin Twisters down here, but you can replace them with Cosmic Cyclone depending on the playstyle and the meta. One copy of Instant Fusion, if Norden is still available. This is just to counteract a bit of the Ghost Ogre stuff and maybe a late game recovery if you need one. But if your opponent kind of hits you with a Ghost Ogre mid combo, you go into Norden to revive basically your mid combo piece that you're going into, and they just lost the Ghost Ogre and you're still going to continue off with a full combo. You have Seasonal Directions to the Zodiac. The on-field effect, well, you target one of your Xyz monster and you attach a Zodiac monster from the deck. And then in the graveyard, the more important effect is that you can banish this card, except for the turn that you send it to the graveyard, target 5 Zodiacs with different names, and then shuffle them back into the deck and draw 1 card. So it's a Jar of Avarice. Next up we have the Dimensional Barriers. Basically shut down the turn depending on the matchup. Of course, you know how this works. Solemn Strike and Solemn Warning, Solemn Brigade, because Solemn Brigade's really good. Lots of special summoning that are basically inherent, so you can interrupt those, and you can obviously use it to negate effects. Solemn Warning, I don't really need to explain this. Next up, we have the Kaiju engine. The Kaiju set I'm running would be Thunder King Kaiju, Jizukira, Dogoran, and Gameciel, and then triple Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. So in terms of mass board removal, I have the Raigeki and the triple Slumber. And of course for the Kaijus, these are the ones I'm going for. It doesn't really matter which one you give your opponent. Of course you want to give them the weaker ones. But if you go into a Drancia and pop it, you can actually push for a ton of damage just by themselves. Okay, for the extra deck, it looks like we have Twinsy Day because most of these cards are run in pairs. So we have a pair of Tigress, a pair of Broad Bull, a pair of Drancia. You could run 1 or 2 Borbo depending on what's your playstyle, a pair of Emeralds, and for some of the one-ofs, we have 1 Gagaga Samurai, which is your main damage OTK pusher, and we have Castel for utility. You could maybe replace this with an Abyss Dweller if you don't like the lawn mowing matchup, and if you're going first, it does hurt them a little bit. For the rank 3s, we have MX Saber Invoker, the Phantom Knights of Bricksword, and we have Totemberg. And for our one-off fusion, we have Elder Entity Norden, of course, only for instant fusion. So all of these Zodiac monsters, aside from gaining effects from the Xyz material, they themselves also have effects too. Broad Bolt allows you to search for any normal summonable Beast Warriors. We have Tigress giving you the ability to reuse Xyz material by detaching one to reattach another one. We have Drancia, which is once per turn during either player's turn, you can destroy 1 face-up card on the field, and Borbo can do a direct attack. And if you successfully put 12 materials on Borbo, I don't know how you're going to do that, and you deal battle damage, your opponent basically loses every single card in their hand and field. I did say that certain cards could get hit, say the Terratops. If Terratops get hit, we're going to be losing out some of these cards like this. So we're losing this stuff here. Potentially we could be losing the Norden as well. If we lose Norden, we're cutting this stuff out. And in terms of the extra deck, you'll have to remove stuff as well. What are the options that you can play to replace it? Well, we could actually put in Ghost Ogres. We can put it in the Rabina. We could put in Ram. Why? Because they carry the Zodiac name, and just by carrying the Zodiac name, it gives you quite a bit of advantage. Because you can already kind of just use the one card setup. I mean, there are odd chances of you not opening with Mole Rat, and well, these are cards that you can still play into setting up the engine, and I'll show you that in a bit. Of course, you can also run Fire Fist Bear, because Bear can also act as a Vanity's Fiend removal paired with a Tenki. These are some of the main deck stuff. Our monsters, but in terms of spells and traps, you can of course run Dark Hole, and you can also run Book of Moon. These are very good cards because Book of Moon's spot removal is actually relevant, even though it's an inherent -1 by just playing it. Turning off a Drancia or turning off a Vanity's Fiend, just basically turning off any problem card, are basically what these two cards are doing. Now, if the Terror Top stuff does get hit, or if Norden gets hit, say we just lose this side of the field here, what do you replace it with? Well, now I guess you get more space for the second Borbo maybe. Perhaps you want to run that Dweller, or perhaps even put in the Utopia stuff. Now, in addition to the build, there are some people that are running Coach Soldier, not Coach Soldier, but Coach Captain Bearman, and of course the Xyz material that pairs off with it. We have the Coach King Giant Trainer. And I'll show you how that combo works in a bit if you guys haven't seen it already in the combo section. Now, in terms of playstyle, now Zodiacs are often seen as a control engine that usually ends with a Drancia on the field, and this Drancia will allow them to pop a card, a face-up card, during either player's turn, so that's part of the control. Now, but the main part of the advantage that they gain is from Marmorat, because Marmorat is the one that sets it up. Through Marmorat, they're able to generate a +3 to maybe +4 advantage, depending on the build that they play, and also they might not even need to use their normal summon to do so. Now, as a one card Xyz deck, bear in mind that they will always have access to the following effects from the extra deck. From Drancia, you get that, of course, once per turn pop during either player's turn. You can use Borbo to basically use it as material or use it as a direct attack, so sometimes you can sneak a game. You can use Broad Bull to search for any Beast Warrior type monster that can be normal summoned. And finally, you have Tigress, which will allow you to basically reattach one Xyz material Zodiac back from the graveyard. So that's all accessible. Now note that they don't have exactly very high attack, so the damage will be coming from the utility, the tech cards, and if we're speaking strictly XYZ, or not XYZs, but like the Zodiac monsters themselves, most of the damage will be coming from Viper and the Thoroughblade, if they run the Thoroughblade. Now, why we run the Kaiju stuff is because this offers the additional tech for damage. Not only does it provide spot removal for really sticky monsters that are kind of annoying to deal with, like Towers-esque monsters, or even like some of the Cosmos ships, but it allows you to go second because you have extra board removal. As like the mirror match is going to be very prominent, you're going to see a lot of people running Zodiacs all over the place, and Kaiju Slumber is a very powerful card that can punish your opponent for not having the proper back row. And then if you have a rat to go with it, that is going to be basically game for them. Now let's go into some of the combo demonstration. All right, so now into the combo. Now, if you open with any of these cards, you're basically guaranteed this Marmorat, okay? This Marmorat's gonna happen. All right, so we got that established. But if you open with these two, you might need to burn off your normal summon. If you open with these two, you get to save your normal summon for something else because you can just special summon into an MX Saber Invoker, or this one just can pop itself and just basically summon it in defense mode. You know, these are the options that you get. But in my demo, I'm going to showcase if you did open with one of each side. Just bear in mind that this is just some extra protection for the Takedonborg side. All right, let's get started. Starting off with the Tenki, I search into the Marmorat. Now I special summon out the Terror Top. Using its effect, I will be able to search myself another Speedlord monster, which will be the Speedlord Taketomborg. Special summon out the Taketomborg, and then I'm going to overlay the two into the Totem Bird. Why do you choose Totem Bird over the MX Saber Invoker? That's because in this play, it's just a bit safer against Dark Holes and other spell cards that could become problematic in the future. Now you can use your normal summon up for the Mole Rat, use the effect, of course, to send the Seasonal Direction to the graveyard, so later on you can basically Jar of Avarice during either player's turn when you have 5 materials in there. After you send that off, let's begin the combo with Marmorat. First guy out, we have Borbo. Now don't use the effect now. I don't think there's any purpose of that. If you use the effect now, your opponent's gonna chain max you right away. And well, basically you're giving them one extra card. Unless they already know that they should preemptively do it here anyway. And next up, we go into Tigress. Now from Tigress, you activate the effect. Don't detach the Marmorat. Keep the Marmorat attached because you don't want to use the effect to reattach it, or if your guy kind of blows up or gets negated by an effect failure, this is where you kind of get shut off if you do detach the Marmorat, or DD Crow for that matter. So you detach the Borbo, summon out the Marmorat because, well, you detach one to summon out the Marmorat, so you don't even have to actually detach itself. Now that that's done, next up we have Barbo. Barbo, you detach the Tigress first to summon out the Marmorat. And finally, you detach the final Xyz material from your Barbo to search yourself a Viper. Now from here, there's only one Xyz monster left to go into in this Drancia, but you may choose to go into it after you go into Digest or Emerald, depending on which position you actually want to leave it in. But normally you will leave it in defense position, so in this case I will be just choosing to go into defense position. But it can alter depending on what kind of traps you have in your back, or if you have a seasonal direction in the back, it does kind of affect it a little. Of course, now I'm going to use Digest or Emerald. I'm going to detach the Marmorat. And then we're going to target the Marmorat, the other Marmorat, and the Borbo. Why the Borbo? Because I only run one copy of this and I'm not sure on Tigress. And even if I want to use Tigress, I have a seasonal direction to the Zodiac to do so. This is the Jar of Avarice. So here we go, shuffling these back in. And whatever you draw can be anything. So this is basically from 2 cards, or even just 1 card. If you ignore this card altogether, you go into a 1 card plus 1, 2, 3, 4. You get a 1 card plus 4. And that's the basic combo. And most of the combos will branch off of this. So when I show you some of the other plays, it will basically be this part here. I'm not going to explain that part, but how it ends is slightly different. Alright, for those who do run the Coach Captain Bearman combo, it's only really good going turn 1. And aside from going, because it does burn off your battle phase, so this is what's going to happen. So to actually do the Bearman combo, you start off with one of the cards to special summon out the Marmorat. So in this case, I'm going to be using Elemental Triangle of the Zodiac. I'm going to target itself to pop itself to summon out the first rat. Because you do need your normal summon to actually do this play. Now I'm going to go into the standard combo here. Going to this, into this, detach, and then of course summon, special summon, and then into the bottom, detach, special summon, and then of course detach this. Instead of searching for Viper, this is the part where you search for the, of course, the Coach Captain Bearman. You haven't normal summoned yet, so what's going to happen is you can normal summon this without any tributes, which pushes the attack stat down by 1300. So then in this part, you normal summon this, use this effect to turn all of the other Beast Warrior you control to level 8, and then you overlay for 3. And this is where you push out Coach King Giant Trainer. And thrice per turn, 3 times per turn, you can actually detach a material to draw 1 card. So in this case, detach, and then you just draw a card. And then you can detach again, draw a card. If it's a monster card, your opponent will burn for that monster. It's about 800 damage per monster. And then you can of course detach this one and you draw another card. Great, so that's like 1600 burn in this case. And then of course you finish off with a Drancia. So that was a 1 card into 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 card plus 4. If you go into it from an Invoker, you will have an Invoker on here as well. So it's pretty scary stuff. So that will be like actually a 1 card plus 5 if you go into it that way. So even though you're going first, it doesn't guarantee that you'll be opening with the rat. Like say for example, a hand like this, you got one Zodiac monster, one Zodiac spell trap, but then nothing that really essentially goes into that rat. And Slumber's pretty much dead. So what you would normally do is, because you still have full extra deck access with a Zodiac monster, you just summon out the Zodiac monster. In this case, I'm going to follow through with what I have here. Basically discard something. If not, that's okay too. Say all these cards were dead. You would go into Broadbolt. Don't put him in attack really, because you're going to detach the material. And then you're going to search yourself that rat for the next turn. That's very simple really, it's not even a combo. And then you finish off with a Drancia. Because Drancia still has the once per turn thing, so it's still good and it's still first turn, so nothing's really used up right here. So you're guaranteed your rat like that, as long as you open any piece. Now the other 4 cards you have in your hand should probably be able to deflect off your opponent for the coming turn. Say you're going to a D-Barrier, Solemn Strikes, all those good cards there. Because you didn't open into your rat, and rat has a chance of basically you have 12 copies of cards that basically can go into rat. If you open those cards, then this situation would be invalid. So most of your cards should be very valid traps, or maybe another card to kind of go off and like board wipe. Okay, for this last combo here, I'm going to incorporate the Kaijus in here and why the Kaiju engine is played in here. So the moment you open a hand like this, where you have the Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, and basically any of the ones here, you have Terror Top, any access to Momrat, as we mentioned before earlier, you can OTK your opponent as long as they don't have like real solid battle, reactive back row, or ways to interrupt your combo. So to show you this combo, I'm actually going to use a Terror Top that's going to be normal summon. So here we go. So starting off the combo, I'm going to be using Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. Don't use your Terror Top because you need this Terror Top. Pulling up the entire field, so wiping out the entire board. You can't use it, of course, if there is no monster on the field. But starting here, we will summon out a Light Thunder Kaiju on my side. And, well, I'm going to give him the Gamay Just bear in mind that your opponent right now has a Gamay Seal. Just going to put it right here. Okay, so board is wiped. That's the only monster on board, and that's the only monster on my side. Normal summon the Terror Top using the effect here. Add the Taketon board. Taketon board can special summon off because of Terror Top being a win. And I guess we'll go off from here now. From here, you go into your MX Saber Invoker. MX Saber Invoker effect, detach. Doesn't really matter, you detach Taketon board. And you basically fetch yourself your Momrat. And from here, we already kind of know what's going on here. We go into the standard combo of Broadbolt into Tigress, detach, to special summon out another rat, of course. And then we go into the Broadbolt, and then we'll detach this. Summon out the second rat. Now you detach the last one, the Viper. Now you're going to Drancia in attack mode. Okay, kind of important. Drancia in attack mode. Use Drancia's effect, pop the Gamay Seal that you gave to them. Overlay these two into Gagaga Samurai. Activate Gagaga Samurai's effect, detach, targeting itself. Now it can attack twice. And going to the battle phase, you can of course attach Viper onto Drancia. Now ignoring that this card even exists, swinging with the Drancia will offer you 1200 damage. And then you can attack for 38 from the Gagaga Samurai attacking twice. So that itself is already 5,000. And then if you attack with the remaining 3,300 Kaiju, That is 8,300. Enough for lethal. And that essentially was a 2-card OTK. Now in terms of weaknesses, this deck does come with its own set of weaknesses. Although consistency is king from getting you from point A to point victory, let's just say that this deck's playstyle and like some of its abilities don't allow it to be as sticky as we would like it to be, which is actually a good balancing feature. Now, first off, starting off with the Max C challenge, this deck is super susceptible to it, and there are weird points where you'll be actually wondering if you should keep going in or maybe just go straight to the Drancia. That's because this deck with the 1-card Exceed Summon, you can generate a ton of advantage, but then if your opponent drops a Max C, they'll be the ones that will be out advantaging you. So there's that decision there. Maybe 4 or 5 cards in, and maybe you just don't feel like keep going in. Now next up, we have Combo Interruption. If you get Ghost Ogre mid-combo, or maybe if you mistakenly get DD Crowed and you lose your Rat, or maybe your Daigusto Emerald play did not go through, these all hurt quite a bit. The Combo Interruption is very vital because losing the Daigusto Emerald play means that your Momorats are still in the graveyard, or your Momorat got interrupted when you use a Tigress. So all this hurts a lot, and 2 Rats is actually not quite playable. You need to get that 2 monster Exceeds out to really push some damage and to really get a solid recovery of your other Rats. Now speaking of interruption and not being able to play, Floodgates. Vanity's Fiend is one of the worst cards you have to face off against. That's why you run stuff like Forbidden Chalice to turn it off, and you also run stuff like Dark Hole, Raigeki to just blow it off the field because it is a problem. You're really dependent on special summoning. And speaking of special summoning, other cards that can hurt you quite a bit include Artifact Scythe. Artifact Scythe hurting the most probably, and if they flip that Sanctum on you, you're pretty screwed. And that's why you use that Chalice. Chalice can actually negate Scythe when it activates the whole, shutting off your extra deck. However, Dimensional Barrier hitting XYZ also hurts just as much. Now, another main weakness to this deck is that none of these monsters float. So all the decks from the past 2 years kind of synergize with the graveyard. Oh, they're destroyed. Okay, well, or like they go to the extra deck because they're Pendulum. They go to the graveyard. They have something to kind of automatically help them recover. This is not the case with this deck. So the moment that you get hit with a Dark Hole or Raigeki or a Kaiju Slumber, you feel every single minus that you get off of that, and your opponent definitely gains a solid advantage off of that too. And speaking of those cards, poor resource management is also one of your key weaknesses, because you can go into your extra deck so quickly, and you dedicate about 8 or 7 slots in your extra deck for the Zodiac cards. Bear in mind that if you burn through them too quickly and you're unable to actually kind of recycle them back into the deck, you'll be losing out your only win condition and your main control condition against your opponent, and that actually could be fatal for you in the grind game in the long run. So that basically covers up some of the weaknesses that I have discovered. If you guys have your own view on some of the Zodiac weaknesses, please leave it down in the comment section below. I would like to hear your thoughts about it. Everyone can kind of learn from this. Okay, now for future updates, Maximum Crisis will be giving Zodiacs a bit more support, though I'm not sure if they really need it, but sure, why not? There's a lot of good cards coming in from there. We have the Chicken, which as an Exceeds material, and this is an effect monster, as an Exceeds material, it can negate monster effects that target the monster that it is attached to, by detaching one, of course. And then the other monsters, we have the Laika, which is the dog, and we also have the Kong, which is the monkey. I don't quite remember what the monkey does, but I do remember that the dog can detach one to special summon one from the graveyard, although you cannot use that monster as an Exceeds material, and I believe the effects are also negated as well. So, please check it out. Of course, they are already released in OCG and Maximum Crisis. And if you guys want to pay more attention to what's going on in OCG with this deck, just check out TCG Organization, check out the top deck, see what happens with the deck. And that basically concludes our Zodiac In Depth Profile, Part 1 with Kaijus. And stay tuned for Part 2 with Eidolons, the Invoked. If you like this video and want to see more stuff from MST.TV, click on the left side to subscribe to us and throw us a thumbs up. And if you want to see our Zodiac live match, Eidolon versus Kaiju matchup variants, click on the right video box here. And if you want a free Stratos, hit the notification bell. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.